Takadosh Boker Or. Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf 95A1. It says the Gemara. If you remember, we were trying to bring certain proofs, and we said that can you compare both proofs? Because we said over there where we were talking about more or less. Here we're talking about that it's not going to be chashuv a ravia, but if it's going to be more than a ravia, more than a quarter, it is going to be chashuv. Fine, and therefore it's going to retract. Tashema. Okay, this is where we're starting today. This is 4 lines down from the top. Tashema, we learned in the Braita. Ha'ona'ah. When we're talking about ona'ah b'mekach, remember ona'ah is charging more than a 6 in a mekach. So he said if it's going to be pachot mishtut, if it's going to be less than a shtut, niknei mekach, it's going to be acquired. Yoter mishtut, if it's going to be, meaning the guy cannot say anything. Why? It's less than a shtut. So if I charge you less than 17%, more than the market value, you can't do anything about it. If it's going to be more than a shtut, batel mekach, it's completely annulled the entire sale. Shtut, what happens if it's exactly a shtut? Kana umachzir ona'ah. You do acquire it, but you have to give back the ona'ah. Okay? So Amai says the Gemara, lehadar, he says, why don't you just give it back ad pachot mishtut until less? Shmami, now we learn from here, kol hecha debayla hude ladure hule meader. Meaning the second that you have to give back money, you give back the entire amount. So this guy was greedy. He went and he wanted the exact shtut. The second that he became greedy and he grabbed the exact shtut, achalta. That's it. Come on. Now he has to give back everything. Beforehand, he could have charged 15%. Yeah, 12%. The guy was greedy. He charged exactly the shtut, which is the 16.6. What happens? You have to give back the entire 16.6%. The entire thing. That's what we're learning from here, that the second that you have to give something back, you have to give the entire thing back. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, can you compare both cases? Hatam over there, mikara. Shaveh b'shaveh Elmaleh. At the beginning, he came and he said that it's going to be shaveh b'shaveh. What does it mean, shaveh b'shaveh? That it's going to be equal. Yeah, what does it mean it's going to be equal? At the beginning, he went and he said that this is going to be the mechir, right, that he put. And therefore, he was not mitratzen. Therefore, it's going to be muchel, even if it's going to be, right, the shtut, or less than shtut. So he says, mi'u pachot mishtut lo yediah b'maneh. But he says, but if it's going to be less than a shtut, he says it's not nikar. So therefore, machli inish. So therefore, people are forgiving, and therefore, what happens is that people are going to forgive it. It's going to be less than shtut, right? Shtut yediyah. Shtut is already going to be nikar, and therefore, lo machli inish. People are not going to be mochel if it's going to be the shtut. Yeter mi shtut. If it's going to be more than a shtut, mekach ta'utu. It's bichlal. It's a mistake, and therefore, batela mekach. That's why. So now we just explained the 3 different reasons. Meaning, one more time. You have less than shtut, you have shtut, and you have more than shtut, right? So therefore, when we're coming and we're talking about, what does shtut come from, by the way? Yeah. Chas v'shalom. Ma shamarta ze shlich. Yeah? Shtuyot ze im tet, ze im tav. Tav ze comes from sheet. Ma ze sheet? 6. Shet. Yeah, 6. Shisha. So therefore, when we're talking about sheet, the 6. The midah is a shishit. The midah is 1/6. 1/6. 16.6%. That's 1/6. No. 1/6. So one more time. We're talking about less than a 6, right? The 6, which is a shtut, and then more than a 6. So this we just explained all 3 different shitot. Says the Gemara. Tashema. We just explained it. So one more time, we're at in the middle of Tzadikei Amud Aleph, 95A in the middle. One more time, we're talking about that there's going to be the shtut, which is again 1/6, which is again 16.66666%. So therefore, if you're going to charge a shtut, so again, if it's less than a shtut, that means you charge the profit margin above the market value. Remember, that means market value, you already probably already have a profit margin. But we're talking about you charged above market value, right? You charged above, let's say 14%, you're still fine. It was less than a shtut. If you charge 15%, you're still fine. You charge 10%, you're still fine. The second that you charge the 16.6666%, right? Okay. The second that you charge the exact amount of the shtut, the mekach is still kayam. Meaning you cannot retract on the sale, but he has to give you back the 16.666%, the full amount. the full 16%. Meaning, don't tell me, no, let me just give back 2%. Now I'm back in the profit margin. No. You have to come and you have to give back the entire thing. If it's going to be more than a shtut, batel legamre. What's it? Mekach taut. Mekach taut means, right? Right? It becomes what? It becomes that the entire thing is a mekach taut. Yeah, it's a taut. It's a mistake. So says the Gemara. Yeah, he comes and he says this. Tashema. Yeah, we're going to try to bring another one now. Yeah, amkabel sadeh mechavero lita. Hareze mekabel alav eser buriyot lemea. Remember, all of these gemarot we're talking about when you're buying something, how much can become bad, right? Nowadays, by the way, it became the custom, right, that you don't accept anything bad. Meaning, if you buy something and it's not good quality, right, you give it back to Walmart. It's not like, listen, I bought 100 grapes or I bought I don't know what, so now, right? The custom became nowadays, especially here in America, you bought 10, right, pairs, and one bad was not good. One pair, you're gonna give that one back. Yeah. Again, you're allowed to, and you get your money back. Yeah. So therefore, what a person just has to understand is, right, is that it all depends on minhag makom. Okay, but in the olden days, there was certain minhagim. So therefore, we have to understand what were the minhagim. So the minhag here was that when you're going to come, you're going to take a field. So you're going to accept, right, eser buriyot, which means 10 trees which do not bear fruit out of 100 trees. Again, it's a 10%. That means you're accepting upon you. That's a big number. Imagine right now you're going to buy 10 pairs, right? And one pair is not good. Or you're going to buy, right, 100 grapes. You know, you get a thing of grapes, you count to them, they're 100. 10 of them are not good. That's powerful. You understand? But, says the Gemara, you have to accept it upon yourself. Meaning, even if it's going to be a 10%, doesn't matter. You're going to come, you're going to say, no, but it wasn't good quality. Why wasn't it good quality? They were 10% bad. Doesn't matter. This is what you accept. Why? Because this is the way that you accept it. Yoter mikan, right? He comes and he says, more than this, megalgalim alav takol. You're going to give him back the entire thing. So again, this is a proof that the second that you went above the margin, hakol choser, meaning not now the entire thing you have to give back. So he comes and he says, Amar Ravuna bered of Yeshua, says Ravuna bered of Yeshua, kol yeter mikan, right? Kebalita mitchila dame. He comes and he says like this, right? Anytime that we're going to say more than this, it's ke'ilu that you're coming to do it from the beginning. And therefore, since you want to come and you want to do it from the beginning, right? So you come and he says, if there's going to be too much psolet, he says it could be that he accepted upon himself until that amount, but not more than that. And therefore, obviously, right, is going to be the different halacha. So now says the Mishnah, we're by the 2 dots. The 2 dots comes and he says, Martef shel yain. We're talking about the wine seller. Okay, remember that when a person comes and he buys wine, so he's also going to have it's a 10%, which is basically going to be 10% that they're going to be kosesot, which is basically they're going to start becoming chometz. That means it's not that they actually became chometz; they're starting to become chometz. But even with that, again, it's going to be a 10%, so it's going to be 10 barrels for every 100. Says the Gemara, hey chidami, what's the case exactly? Ida male martef shel yain stam. If he told him stam martef shel yain, so kasha, you're going to have a question. Right? The Ida Male, now if he tells him, right, he says, Martef ze shel yain, kasha. Right? Meaning like this. If I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you, this Martef, remember that's as if that I come and I say in English, as is. As is means the way that it is, that's why I sold it to you. There's going to be defects, there's going to be whatever it is, don't come back to me. You have to do due diligence and then you accept it or not, but that's it. As is. That's the concept. Okay? Ze. It's this. This is what I'm selling to you. If I tell you I'm just going to give you, right, wine, so obviously I have to give you good wine. If I'm going to tell you this cellar of wine, so therefore, listen, in the cellar they had 9 barrels out of 100, or 10 barrels out of 100, it's going to be okay. Yeah? So he says, so Ida Amal, if he told him Martev Zeh, Kasha, it's going to be a question also. So therefore, the question is, right, what's the case exactly? So he says like this, the Tanyas we learned in a Brighton. Martev shel yain ani mochel lecha. If a person comes and he says, I'm going to sell you a martev shel yain, right? Noten lo yain shekulo yafeh. He has to give him all good wine. All the wine has to be good. Martev ze shel yain. If he says this, right, martev of yain, noten lo yain ani mkar b'chanut. You're going to give him the yain which is in the chanut, which is even going to be yain koses. Martev ze ani mochel lecha. If he says martev ze ani mochel lecha, he doesn't say shel yain. Afilu kol kulo chometz yigio. Even if the entire thing is going to be chometz yigio. So why? Because I didn't say yain. And if I didn't say yain, so for it's nothing. Yeah, I didn't say yain. Fine. So says the Gemara, Leolam, really be'emet we're talking about. Damar le martev shel yain stam. We're talking about martev shel yain stam. The Tani b'reisha de Braita, and the reisha of the Braita comes and teaches mikabel elav eser kosesot le'mea. Right, that you're going to accept upon yourself 10 kosesot for 100. So you're accepting upon yourself again 10% of the loss. So says the Gemara, uvistami mikabel. Are you going to tell me that stam you always accept it upon yourself, right? The amount. Veha when you're going to sell a chavit of yain, you have to give him the entire thing, right? Everything good. Says the Gemara, no. If it's one barrel, you have to give him one. Meaning, if I'm going to buy one bottle of wine, you can't give me a bad bottle of wine. It has to be a good bottle of wine. That for sure. We're talking about big quantities. So if you're already coming in big quantities, you have it. By the way, you should know this happens until today with milk. Yeah, lale. Many times what happens is that, let's say Chalavi sell milk, right? It spoils quicker than the regular milk. Because the regular, not Chalavi sell milk, they put enough things into it that it could stay for whatever it is. But Chalavi sell, and especially they have to transport from one place to another. So you already know that when you're buying the milk, you're giving it back, right? What does that mean? If it's not good, you give it back. And they keep it and they give it back to the supplier. Which means that it's not like Exactly. What does that mean? That you give it back? Meaning that there's a certain minhag that even if it's going to be one, it doesn't matter what it is. Even if you bought 10, let's say you bought 100, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter on the quantity. You give it back, right? But again, a lot of it depends on the custom. You have to give him the yain, which is the why? Because martev shel yain. But if he says martev ze, this one, again, you're going to accept the 10%. Okay, so the camel bet 95b. Vezeu otzar sheshanu chachamim mishmatenu. That's the otzar, the martef that the chachamim taught us. Meaning, when we're coming and you're saying, right, that the martef zeh shel yain. So therefore, you have to actually accept 10%, but not more than that. Meaning, you can't come and start giving me another 20, right? It's 10% maximum. That's going to be bad. You're right. He did say zeh. So he says, okay, fine, but then kasha zeh azeh. You have a stira. Zeh azeh. So he comes and he says, Lakash, that's not a question. The Elmaleh that he says lemikpa. Lemikpa means that you're doing it for cooking. And therefore, once you're doing it for cooking, you need it for zman aroch, right? That means you need it for a longer time. If I'm going to tell you I need wine for cooking, I don't need vinegar, I need wine. So I'm not going to drink it. But the cooking, you don't use it as when you come and you say drinking, here they come, they drink a bottle in 5 minutes, you understand? But when you need it for cooking, you need it for a longer extended period of time. So therefore, you need it for a longer period of time. Okay? So he says, that's what he says. The Rav Zavid Amal lemikpa. He says, when Zavid was talking about it, he said lemikpa, and therefore you need it for longer. The Braita is talking about the lo amale lemikpa. They do not say lemikpa. Hilkachem there. For Matev Shel Yain, when you say Matev Shel Yain, v'amalo lemikpa, and he told him lemikpa, you have to give him all good wine. If you say Matev Zeh Shel Yain, and then he says lemikpa, but you have to accept 10 for 100. Matev Zeh Shel Yain, and he didn't say lemikpa, so then you have to give him even. You could give him koses. Okay? Says the Gemara, Pligi ba Rav Acha v'Ravina. There's a machloket here between Rav Acha and Ravina. One of them went and he said mekabel, which means you're going to accept the 10%. The Chadamar lo mekabel, and one of them says you don't have to accept the 10%. So Mandamar mekabel, the one of Mandamar that says you're going to be mekabel, dayek midiyek mid Rav Zvid, so he's going to be medayek from Rav Zvid. When I'm going to come and I'm going to sell you a martev shel yain, right? So what happens is noten lo yain shekol yafe. You're going to give him a martev shel yain that everything is going to be good. Again, what is the case? You sell lemikpa. Lemikpa means that it's going for bishul, and once it's going to go for bishul, so therefore you need it for longer, extended periods of time. Ta'ama, the reasoning why is because you told him lemikpa. Halo amar lemikpa, but if you didn't say lemikpa, mekabel, you do accept it. Umanda'amar lo mekabel, and according to the manda'amar that you're not going to be mekabel, diek mi braita, you're going to be medayek from the braita. Diktani, as we said, martev shel yain ani mochel lecha, notel lo yain shekul yafe. You're going to give the good wine. Ukimna de lo amar lemikpa. Again, you did not say the mikpa. So therefore, again, one more time, Lemikpa is for bishul. For bishul, you always need extended period of time because you need it for longer time in order to use it. And again, you don't want vinegar, you want wine. So the second that you say lemikpa, you need it for a longer time frame. Okay, and therefore you can't just start giving him something that's going to become chometz because right away he's going to give it back to you. He's going to say, "Listen, I'm sorry, I needed it for lemikpa." So man did the midir was vid kasha braita. It's going to be a question of braita. He says, this is what you have to read the Braita. Listen to the Braita. The Braita says like this. When do you come and you say that you're going, if you said, you have to give him yain shekulo yafeh, only if you did say lemikpa. But if you did not say lemikpa, mekabel, you have to accept 1/10. Martev zeh shel yain, if he says martev zeh shel yain and he didn't say lemikpa, you just give him regular wine. Okay, but according to the one that's going to be medayek in the Braita, Kasha de Razvid, you have a question, Razvid. So therefore, if he said lemikpa, you have to give him the good one. If you didn't say lemikpa, even the 10%. You could give him the 10%. Okay? So he says, the same halacha would apply even if you didn't say lemikpa, and you're still not going to be mikabel. He says the question is on this, yain zeh shani mocher. So therefore, there we had a contradiction of yain zeh. So in order to answer up the contradiction, we went and we said whether it's going to be lemikpa or not lemikpa. Okay, but really be'emet, he's not going to be mikabel. Okay, fine. It says on the bottom, Amar Rav Yehuda. Okay, the Gemara is now going to speak about what beracha. So now we're starting a new sugya now, right? We're starting something new. Okay, nothing to do with how much do you accept. What is the beracha on this wine? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Yain nikah bechanut, v'archim alav bor priya gefen. Right? Remember that any type of wine which you're going to buy in the chanut, that means even though it's got a din of koses that it's starting to become chometz, whatever it is, you're still going to come and you're going to make bor priya gefen. Rav Chasta comes and he says, V'gabechamra de akrim. Right? When you have wine, you have the thing that comes on the top. How do you call that thing again? The froth, I think it was called. No, in English? The froth on the top, right? Which means that it started to be mitkalkel. So he says, Chamra de akrim, lamali. Why are you going to say Bura Gefen? You're going to say Shakol Niyam Bidvaro. Meaning on anything which is going to like not be the normal taste, you would change it to a Shakol, not a Gefen. So if this wine is not anymore the best, why in the world are you going to make Bura Gefen? You should make Shakol. Okay, so it's a machloke between Rav Chasta and Rav Yehuda. Okay, fine. Meitve, we're going to ask a question. What about by bread? Alapat sheipsha. When you have bread that became bad, ועל היין שיקרים, or on yain שיקרים, or על תבשיל שברה צורתו. אומר שהכל נהיה בדברו. This is a proof, מפורש, ברייתא, like Rav Yehuda. First of all, bread that went bad. שהכל. Same thing with תבשיל שברה צורתו. That's a very good question. I'm not sure. But now we're talking about bracha rishona. We're not talking about bracha achrona. No, I asked. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Dog will not eat it, right? No, that ad kedekach, I don't think so. This you right? Yeah. Here it says, right? Here he comes and he says that we're talking about, yeah, it says it in the footnote. We're still talking about that it's still ru'im la'achilat adam, and that's why you have a bracha, because if it's not fitting for a thing, then you wouldn't make a bracha at all. You understand? But obviously it's still fitting for a ben adam. Okay, so it's still fitting for human being for consumption, but it's just not, it looks a little bit interesting. You understand? So again, pat, but what was the main one? Yain sheikrim. That was the one that we just said before. So yain sheikrim, the bracha is shakol. So you, Rav Yehuda, comes and he says, B'Rapriya Gefen, there's a stira to Rav Yehuda. This sounds like Rav Chasta. You should say shakol niyam bidvaro. So Amar Razvid comes and he answers, Moder Rav Yehuda bekurmatza de mizdaba karnata. He says that we're talking about yain, which is going to be squeezed, wine that is going to be squeezed from the chatzinei gefen. I mean, you're going to take the peels of the grapes and you're going to squeeze them. And since it's like the inferior quality, meaning where do you make the wine from? From the juice, from the I don't know you call it the flesh of the fruits, right? Here you're not doing that. You're taking the peels, right, or the seeds, whichever. You remember there's a machloket. What is chatzanim? What is zag? And that's what you're making the wine from. So ever since you're taking something inferior, you don't make a gefen. You're only going to make shakol miyabidvaro. Okay? So Amaleh Abayel Rav Yosef says Abayel Rav Yosef, Harav Yehuda, Harav Chasta, right? More Sfira. So 1 second. You have the Shitav of Yehuda. You have the Shitav of Chasta. How do you hold? What do you hold? So Abaye asked Rav Yosef, how do you paskin? Like Rav Chasta of Yehuda, Elmaleh matznita yadana. I know the Braita, right? What is the Braita? The Tanya Zulim Tana Braita. Bodek et achavil yom afrish alea truma veolech. Imagine I'm going to check the barrel to be mafrish trumot u'masrot from it. Okay, and afterwards it found to become chometz. So he says, Kol shoshim yom vadai, right? For sure it was going to be, that means the 30 days, for sure it's going to be the wine. Mikam ve'elach safek. And then again, we're going to have a safek. How do you learn this Braita? What does it mean 30 days is vadai and then it's a safek? Is it going backwards? Is it going forwards? Like, how do you do it exactly, right? So obviously, Bezat Hashem will continue, right, on Sunday, Bezat Hashem.